day around the world, thousands of commercial airplanes take off carrying millions of passengers. The paying customers may never have noticed that most of those planes have one thing in common.
If you've flown in the last 40 years, here in the United States or abroad, there's a good chance it was on one of their planes and assembled on this factory floor. Join me as we go behind closed doors with the largest producer of commercial aircraft, Boeing.
To see where the biggest planes in their inventory come from, I'll go inside the biggest building in the world, where thousands of people assemble the most advanced commercial airliner flying today, Boeing 777.
It's amazing what we actually build and how it actually flies.
When I see one of the airplanes go, I say, well, there's one of mine.
Especially my son. Hey, Dad, did you build that airplane? Yeah, I built some of that airplane.
It's sometimes called the 777, and it's actually a family of airplanes. Boeing builds several models that come in different lengths, but one word describes them all: big. How big? Here's a 737 that might hold 150 people. It's a familiar jet in the skies of any city. A 777 is so big, you could park a full-size 737 on each wing. What's it take to buy one? A big wallet. Airlines can spend more than $230 million on each plane.
I've been told that the 777 is pretty much the most technologically advanced plane. Would you say that's true?
It has the most technology and it has the most valuable technology, which means that it really provides a benefit to the airlines.
On the outside, what looks like any big wing is really a super wing, designed to make the 777 very fuel efficient. That's something the airlines like. What the pilots like is inside, a high-tech cockpit with colorful flat panel displays.
Are you sometimes still just amazed at the technological advancements? You just say, wow.
Yeah, every day. Every time I come out to this airplane and walk around it, you get that same feeling as, wow, it's incredible how well it works.
The 777 was the first commercial Boeing jet that was full fly-by-wire. That means when the pilot moves the controls, rather than his actions going directly to the wings, a computer interprets the commands and decides how best to fly the plane. It's a state-of-the-art system that not only flies the plane, but will land it too.
Today, the pilot has to taxi the airplane out, and he has to take off, and they can put the autopilot on and run the computers from then on. It'll land itself, roll out to the end of the runway, and stop. It's the best flying plane we've ever made.
The way Boeing designed the 777 was revolutionary. Engineers used three-dimensional computer technology to electronically simulate every part, all 3 million of them. Then to make sure the pieces fit, they did a virtual assembly of the entire plane.
It's the most amazing thing when you see something on a piece of paper or on a computer screen, and then all of a sudden you see it in reality on an airplane.
Does that still kind of
Oh,
boggle your mind?
It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind every time I see one take off.
June 12, 1994, just 5 years after design work began, the first 777 was on the runway for the very first flight.
The greatest thing anybody that's involved in our industry can experience is first flight. After you've put all this effort in terms of design and manufacturing, and you finally see that airplane roll out, and then you see it sitting down at the end of the runway, and it comes down the runway and then it takes off, it's the most exciting thing you can see.
Boeing says the 777 underwent the most extensive flight test program ever conducted on a commercial jetliner. 9 airplanes endured everything from tail-dragging takeoffs to an aborted takeoff. This test makes sure the heaviest 777, going more than 100 miles per hour, can stop if a takeoff is refused. The test turned the brakes a red-hot 3,000 degrees. it purposely destroyed $750,000 worth of tires and brakes, but the aircraft passed with flying colors. The first 777 entered service with United Airlines in 1995. Today, the more than 400 777s in the air have made nearly 1.5 million flights. The birthplace for Boeing's favorite twin-engine baby is here in Everett, Washington, 30 miles north of Seattle. Building jumbo jets takes a jumbo factory. This is by volume the largest building in the world. In fact, its hangar doors alone are as tall as an 8-story building. Behind them is more than 4 million square feet of floor space, enough to hold 75 football fields. Ray Connor, the head of the 777 program, took me inside the massive plant.
So we do the 767, 777, and the 747 up here.
The big guys.
The big guys. This is wide body country up here.
Yeah.
And this airplane right here, this one, this is actually about 10.5 feet longer than a 747.
It's longer than the 747?
Yep. This is the longest airplane we make.
They told me it was immense, but it was still hard to fathom how colossal the Everett factory really is. There's enough floor space to build a city of more than 2,000 average-sized homes. And here, once you drive to work, you still need to commute indoors. 777 business analyst Angie Johnson showed me how they get around.
Were you just amazed the first time you came in here?
I was. In fact, I couldn't find my way around to save my life.
Well, you need these carts just to get around so far.
In addition to the carts, there's a lot of bikes.
I've noticed that, people on bicycles.
Right. It's a lot quicker to get on a bike than to walk because it would take a long time to get from point A to point B.
And even cars drive around here.
Lots of cars. There's actual street signs.
Oh my gosh. We are turning on to Main Street.
On to Main Street.
We just turned off M Street.
About 2,000 employees work on 3 shifts around the clock. In a single month, they can assemble 7 777s. Once you see the size of these planes close up, that's truly remarkable. Next, find out how tons of airplane parts are put together with delicate precision.
Within the thickness of a human hair.
And I'll step out for a wing walk. As you're watching this all around the globe, people are boarding thousands of airplanes. Those aircraft are amazing, complex vehicles that are the product of years of design and months of construction. To get a first-hand look at how the 777 is put together, I went behind closed doors of Boeing's gigantic Everett, Washington plant.
The airline orders the airplane a long time before we start to build it. And around 9 months is the time that we give them to finally say, this is where I want my seats, this is where I want my galley, this is how many seats I want. And so it's actually really set out 9 months away.
It takes about 900 different suppliers to manufacture the millions of parts that make up a 777. The work starts on several different continents. Wing flaps come from Spain and Italy. The rudder comes from Australia, and sections of the body are made in Japan. In container ships, rail cars, and big rig trucks, they all come together here.
Actually, the thing that's most amazing is the way all the parts are orchestrated. Some of them are very small detail parts that come in. You put them in with 1 or 2 rivets. Some of them are complete assemblies. And when they come in, they're very complex. A lot of people say it's almost like 3 or 4 million parts all flying in close formation together.
Once the parts start coming together, rollout is little more than a month away.
The time it takes to build this airplane, in this factory, this big building here, 40 days. Then effectively, this is the birth, if you like, when those doors open and the airplane goes out. But everything needs to be geared up to that birth of the airplane.
The plant is a gargantuan assembly line. The planes first take shape in 3 main parts: the forward body section, including the nose, the aft body section, and the center wing section.
Now this is where everything kind of starts, right?
This is the starting point. This is where the pieces for the wing come in.
The wings start in long strips that are riveted together to make the upper and lower panels.
That's the gem core machine. It does 90% of the riveting on the upper and lower wing panels.
So it's like a giant Rosie the Riveter machine?
Exactly.
We're going to a noisier section.
Some areas of the plant seem almost louder than standing next to one of their planes ready for takeoff. Here, the upper and lower panels are joined to make the complete wing. This part is done by hand.
I love it. It's a great, fun job to do. I love building something. When I'm done, I say, wow, look at this.
At the same time, big aluminum sections of the fuselage are being put together. To complete the round fuselage, sections that can weigh up to 20,000 pounds each are lifted into this huge blue device they call the rotating tool. Here the sections are spun around so the last piece can be secured. The pieces of fuselage are at this point just hollow tubes. This is what the cockpit looks like before the instruments and controls are put in. And back where first-class passengers will sit is completely empty. Workers still have to add miles of wire, insulation, and the structure to secure the luggage bins, all the inner cabin workings that are invisible when you are a passenger. Next, the wings are attached to the center section of the fuselage. Each step of the way, more pieces are put on. Some are small and intricate.
There's a lot of wiring, miles and miles of wires, and we have to put it in by hand. There's no other way.
Other parts are hefty, like this strut that will support a wing flap.
You just don't come out here and start putting parts on. There's a lot of schooling that we've gone through, and if you were to start in here, you would have someone help you and train you up to speed.
At this point, the 777, still in sections, will fly for the first time inside this huge plant. Cranes that can carry 40 tons line the parts up for what is called the final body join. Precision is key.
They're positioned and aligned to within less than 3/1000 of an inch, within the thickness of a hair, a human hair.
Installed in the tail is the so-called black box, which is really orange to make it easier to find after a crash. The box can take punishment the plane can't survive. But then why not build airplanes the same as the indestructible black box? Because the planes would be so heavy, they'd never get off the ground. Watching this plane become complete right before your eyes is an amazing sight. Time-lapse photography makes it look so easy, an industrial ballet on an immense scale.
It's all choreographed from one to the next, and they all know exactly what to do, when to drill, when to fasten. So it's amazing that that all comes together. You still are wowed by this, aren't you?
I've been here for 20 years and I'm still amazed at the way things come together. And it's true, the sum is greater than the parts.
Fully loaded, a 777 can weigh up to 330 tons. Engineers had to develop this innovative landing gear to keep the aircraft from crushing existing runways.
And take a look at these. Tell me about these.
Well, these are about the largest landing gear there on a commercial airplane right now. The tires inflate about 200 PSI.
And on each landing gear, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these.
6 tires. On the nose gear, we have 2 tires. But there's a lot of ability to stop the airplanes in these things. And they're pieces of art in their own right, in my mind.
For a perspective on the 777 that I could never get in flight, production team manager Alan Crowder and I geared up with safety harnesses.
All right. So you're just putting seats in this one, right?
Yeah, that's what, actually seats are one of the last things that we put in because it's easier to work without the seats installed. So let's put in the boot socks.
The boot socks protect the new airplane, while crews of 25 mechanics at a time put the finishing touches on the interior.
This is like being in a house before the furniture gets moved
Yeah,
in.
that's actually the way it feels.
The need for a safety harness became clear when we stepped out onto the wing.
But boy, you really get a sense of the immensity of this. It's about 4 or 5 stories high.
When you look at
the tail would be like a 10-story building.
it's pretty close. It's about a 7 or 8 story building at the height of the tail, the maximum height.
It's like a building that goes in the air.
It's a very big building.
At 242 feet, this plane is the longest in the family of 777s. The wingspan is just an inch short of an even 200 feet.
And inside the wing is all the fuel.
That's correct.
The wings are the fuel tanks.
The wings are the fuel tank. There's fuel from here all the way out to just about that yellow circle there.
Each wing holds more than 15,000 gallons of fuel. Add in the center fuselage tank, and the plane holds more than 45,000 gallons, enough to fill the tank of your SUV for the next 60 years. Next, from pavement-blasting jet engines to a really big paint job.
How'd I do?
What's under the skin of a 777? It's a scene repeated daily.
21D, you're off that.
Passengers rushing to get to their planes, and flight crews methodically checking the aircraft they will fly. This Boeing 777 sits on the ground at O'Hare International in Chicago, ready to depart for Tokyo. The captain takes the controls on a high-tech flight deck that was designed with input from more than 600 pilots. Instead of the standard paper checklist, he will rely on electronic checklists that the flight computer puts on screen. Not long ago, this flight of 6,200 miles over water was a trip that only a 4-engine jet could make. But powered by just 2 engines, this American Airlines 777 will land at Narita in about 13 hours. The most expensive components on the 777 are the engines. The new ones can list for up to $20 million, and they are enormous. The latest engine built by GE puts out more than 115,000 pounds of thrust. It was flight tested on a 747, where it outsized the plane's normal engines. When it was fired up, the jet blast blew around chunks of loose concrete. On the 777, the engines have enough power for the jet to accelerate like a sports car, going from 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds. In the air, it cruises at more than 550 miles per hour. In its last hours at final assembly, the interior of the plane comes together. The familiar-looking wall panels and storage bins are installed. Here's something you never see. The finishing touches going on downstairs in the cargo hold. The biggest 777 can hold more than 7,000 cubic feet of cargo. That's enough room to stash 165 average-sized refrigerators. Finally, the 777 gets a full systems test. It's a workout that exercises all the control surfaces. This helps to bleed any air out of the hydraulic systems. During the night shift, the fully assembled plane is towed to one of 3 paint hangars. Each paint hanger is, well, big enough to hold a jumbo jet. In order to bake on 3 coats of paint, these hangars can be heated to 120 degrees Fahrenheit.
What do you paint first? Like, do you start at the tail? Do you start at the nose?
Actually, there's 8 people painting all at once. So we've got 4 people on each side of the airplane painting at the same time.
It will take 3 to 4 days to paint a 777, but time-lapse photography gets it done in a flash.
What's the most challenging logo?
Right now, probably British Airways.
British Airways?
Yeah.
That's because the British Airways tail sections sport a variety of complicated designs. Some parts must be painted before they're put on the plane. For instance, the rudder, which has to be carefully balanced when installed. Today, I'll join the paint crew to lay down the first coat on a rudder. As simple as it may sound, painting this piece is a carefully controlled process that starts with protective clothing. The smaller parts can be sprayed in this room called a paint box. The hood made me feel a little claustrophobic, so getting the air supply hooked up was a relief.
Ooh, a little air, that's nice.
If I mess up on the rudder, Bud will have to do it all over again.
Yours looks so even. Do you have a tip?
You want a halfway overlap each time. You start up, and then you halfway overlap where you just painted, halfway overlap, halfway overlap.
So it's kind of like...
It's kind of like want to keep dancing.
Like dancing?
Right.
Okay, so it's the rhythm to it.
Start up top. There you go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
How'd I do?
You're an aircraft painter.
The overall paint scheme is up to the airline that will fly it. The same goes for the interior, and the possibilities are endless.
The designs that we create for each customer are going to be different depending on their cultural requirements, the mission of the aircraft, the route structure. There's just a lot of things that come into play.
So if they can choose any color in the rainbow, why do they always seem to pick blue?
One of the things that really appeals to people about the blue is it's comfortable, it presents a cool and soothing environment. From the operations side of the color, it's fabulous for maintenance. It doesn't show anything.
Each airline features their own special seating in the first and business class sections.
Now we're in first class, right?
Yes.
The woodwork in between the seats is absolutely beautiful. Now, that's not going to be that way on every 777. This is this particular customer.
This is specific for Air Emirates and what they had ordered.
Often the different interiors are strictly to suit cultural needs, which can vary greatly from country to country.
Some customers want everything from extra bathrooms to prayer rooms. Yeah, prayer rooms on some of the Muslim country airplanes. They have prayer rooms on them, believe it or not.
Out on the tarmac, a Singapore Airlines jet is waiting to be delivered. But there's one more detail.
Before one ticketed passenger boards this plane, it will undergo a series of trials designed to simulate every possible airborne scenario. It is the ultimate test drive.
So far, a small tug has towed this huge plane from final assembly to the paint hangar and on to this stall near the runway. Now, for the first time, this 777 moves under its own power. At the controls, Chief Test Pilot Frank Santoni.
Nervous at all?
No.
So you don't consider it dangerous to take something airborne that's never gone up before?
I've never considered it dangerous. In all my years here at Boeing, never.
At the far end of the runway, the multi-million-dollar engines roar to life. The huge tires roll, and all 3 million parts working in concert lift off for the first time.
We take it to its fastest speed possible. Then in descents, we do engine relights.
What do you mean that, engine relights? Do you mean that the engines go off and then you turn it back on?
Yes. We shut one engine down at a time and then see that it relights in flight.
But you don't shut them both down at the same time?
No.
Oh, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
More than 400 777s are flying worldwide. Having met the Boeing workers that build them, I'm convinced the airlines that placed orders only think they own them.
There's a lot of pride in the product that we build and the mechanics have in the quality of the work they do. So when the airplane leaves here, it's always our airplane.